Working It Out, a podcast show about diversity, equity, and inclusion in our workplaces, our communities, and our lives. A show where we put diversity and inclusion to work.
Got problems on the job, we're working it out. Workplace got you stressing, we're working it out. Yeah, we're working it out, working it out, working it out.
Welcome. I'm Dr. Vanessa Weaver, your host of Working It Out. On this episode, I'm joined by Ricki Fairley, CEO of Touch Black Breast Cancer Alliance. As a triple negative breast cancer survivor and thriver, Ricki's purpose, passion, and ministry is to bring attention, research, science, and action to eradicating Black breast cancer. She supports and coaches what she calls her breasties through their breast cancer experience. Ricki is an award-winning, seasoned marketing veteran that has transformed her strategic acumen into breast cancer advocacy. Ricki is a founding member of Black Data Matters in partnership with Citizens, the Center for Healthcare Innovation, and the renowned Morehouse School of Medicine. Their mission is to encourage and elevate the importance of Black women participating in clinical trial research. In January of this year, Ricki started the When We Trial movement to change the game on Black women participating in clinical trials to improve outcomes with breast cancer. Ricki also has a personal life. She has two daughters, Amanda and Haley, and three granddaughters, Belle, Leah, and Hart, who remind her of her purpose every day. And then on top of having these two wonderful daughters and three granddaughters, Ricki is a proud graduate of Dartmouth College and holds an MBA from the Kellogg Graduate School of Management at Northwestern University. I'm so excited, Ricki, you could join us today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Vanessa. I'm so happy to be here. I love the name of the show, Working It Out. I love those words. It's so great.
Well, thank you for that. You know, what's interesting, Ricki, and I guess before I want to share some data, because there's some critical data that people can find on your website, Touch, about the status of breast cancer with Black women. But before we start that conversation, I just want you to just kind of share when we say you have triple negative, what does that mean?
So, you know, there are several subtypes of breast cancer, and it's really driven by how the drugs are received into the cancer cell.
I see.
So there are three main kinds. One is based on estrogen, a hormone that you know about. One is based on progesterone. One is based on a protein called HER2. And if you test negative for all three of those, meaning there's, you know, nothing can go into the portals, it's called triple negative. It has the worst outcomes. It has the highest mortality rate. It's the most aggressive breast cancer. And it's the only breast cancer that doesn't have a drug to prevent recurrence. So you may have heard of taking tamoxifen or something for 5 years. We don't have a drug. It comes back very readily after a year or two, and it's killing us in crazy numbers. It also affects Black women at 3 times the rate.
Three
so
times?
So almost 30% of the breast cancers that Black women get are triple negative. So it's a nasty disease. And we're getting it at younger ages, at later stages, and it's killing us in ridiculous numbers. We also only have really now 1 treatment option for early stage triple negative and 2 treatment options for metastatic triple negative that are targeted for our disease.
I see. Well, Ricki, well, given that reality of the cancer, the triple negative cancer that you're thriving with, tell me, what is your why? I mean, you're involved on boards, you know, you're committed to increasing the participation of Black women in clinical trials, you're coaching. I mean, you're doing all of this. You could just go somewhere and choose to just be totally, you know, consumed, understandably, with the cancer that you're dealing with. But why are you so committed?
Because we're dying, and I know that God left me here to do this work. Vanessa, and just a snapshot of my story. So I was diagnosed with stage 3A triple negative. I did a double mastectomy. I did 6 rounds of aggressive chemo. I did 6 weeks of radiation. Almost a year to the day of my diagnosis, they found 5 spots on my chest wall. My doctor at the time said, okay, Ricki, you're now metastatic. You have 2 years to live. Get your affairs in order. And I said, I can't really die right now. I have a daughter at Dartmouth. I've got to get her through school. So me and God and some drugs or something has got to work this out. And I went on Google, at the time and back then, 10 years ago, there were 3 pages of you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die, you're going to die tomorrow to get to the Triple Negative Breast Cancer Foundation. When I found them, I reached out to them and they hooked me up with one of about 5 doctors in the country that were kind of researching triple negative breast cancer. I went to a new doctor. She put me on some experimental drugs that weren't approved yet for triple negative. And I'm here 10 years later.
10 years later.
So I know that God left me here to do this work. I've met too many women who didn't have the experience that I had and have died or are dying. And it's my purpose. It's my purpose. So I got my daughter through college. I remember sitting at graduation at Dartmouth with my mom and my friends and my sisters thinking, okay, God, we made it to graduation. I got Haley through. Now what? And it just hit me like a brick. Well, you got to go help other women. So that's why I do this work.
Aren't we blessed and fortunate to have this commitment and passion? And, you talked about the fact that Black women are really impacting this. And some of the data on your website was just astounding. For example, 41% of Black women are more likely to die of breast cancer than white women.
Yeah.
And that we experience the lowest survival rate, that lowest 5-year survival rate.
Yes.
For any race or ethnicity.
Right. So Black women have a 41% higher mortality rate than white women. Black women with breast cancer have a 39% higher recurrence rate of breast cancer than white women. But the worst facts to me are the ones for young women. Black women under 30 get breast cancer at 4 times the rate of white women, die at 3 times the rate. Black women under 35 get breast cancer at twice the rate of white women and die at 3 times the rate. Black women under 50 die at twice the rate of white women. And the earlier numbers is well before they would get that first mammogram at age 40. It's just outrageous to me, because they don't even know about it. They can't even think about it, and they're not even thinking about breast cancer, and it hits them like a brick, and they're more likely to get triple negative.
Nice. Oh my goodness. So our show, Working It Out, is about diversity, equity, and inclusion issues as they show up in the workplace. And when I hear those stats, people might ask, well, why are you doing this show when this is a diversity, equity, and inclusion workplace show? Well, the stats that you talked about really is going to impact pretty significantly representation issues in the workplace for Black women and women of color.
Yes. So, the word health and equity is not a thing for me. It doesn't exist. It's health inequity. And to me, we're not going to get to health equity, and it applies across every workplace, really, but we're not going to get to health equity until every healthcare professional practices the golden rule, what you learned from your mom when you were 2 years old. Treat others as you want to be treated. So I actually challenge our patients to say, would you give this treatment plan to yourself if you were sick, to your mom, to your grandma, to your daughter, to your auntie? And would you treat others the way, how would you treat others if this were you, right? And so we have to get to that level of care. And that's across really every industry. If you think about it, if everybody practiced the golden rule, we would have equity, we would have inclusion, we would have people at the table having good conversations about having diverse representation in our workforce, in our lives, across everything.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing those stats, because when you think about Black women under 35, they're in that kind of millennial group, right? That millennial population. And that's the largest population now in our workplace. So why do we have those kind of disparities? Why are young Black women under 35 more likely to get higher rates of cancer and higher rates of triple negative cancer?
So that's what we're all about, is doing these clinics, getting more people into research, because we really don't know, Vanessa. We don't know. We don't have the science to really understand why this is happening. And we've never, if you look back in history, which I did last year, to look at all the drugs that we have on the market right now as standard of care for breast cancer, there were no Black women in those clinical trials. There were no Black women in that research. Even there's a research study, there's a premise that's very well practiced by doctors right now that once you have cancer, getting a lumpectomy, like taking a lump of where the cancer is out and doing radiation, is equivalent to getting a double mastectomy, which is what I had, like just taking your boobs off altogether. Well, guess where that research was done? It was done in Sweden. How many Black women were in that study? None. So a lot of the things that are happening that are policies and practices in the medical field, Black women weren't involved in those conversations, in those studies. And so it doesn't work for us. It doesn't work for us.
Well, I know you're partnering with Morehouse College of Medicine. Is there any role that our workplaces, our companies can play to encourage more women of color, more Black women to participate in these clinical trials?
Yeah, well, we need more research. We need more Black oncologists. We need more Black doctors, and we're trying to work on that, with our internship program. But I sit on the board of the Center for Healthcare Innovation, and in 2 weeks they're actually having a diversity hiring there to help bring more Black employees into science, into drug companies, into doing some of this work. But we started our movement when we trial at the end of January, and we really had based everything on our movement on insights that we got from research. We interviewed about 300 Black breasties last year, and we tried to understand what their fear was of clinical trials and of research. And we know about the earned medical mistrust with Henrietta Lacks and the syphilis study and kind of the Black community being abused by research historically. But I knew there was something deeper than that. And when I really dug into it, I heard women saying, well, I'm going to get the sugar pill and die, or it's a last resort. And so really the why they're not participating is, first of all, they're not asked by their doctors, but second of all, because they're afraid. Like, you're not going to jump off that bridge if you don't know how deep the water is. You're not going to open that door unless you know what's on the other side, right? And so just fear of the unknown, with having a lot of misconceptions and bad and wrong information, made them shy away from clinical trials. And so we said, oh my God, we need to educate them, and we need to educate our breasties. So, the Breastie Club is not one that you want to be in. I don't recommend it. But once you're in it, we have unconditional love and trust. And so what I learned was I was a voice of trust. So are my other breasties. And so we developed this whole marketing campaign, or really it's a movement, not a campaign, that's for breasties, by breasties, about breasties. And we're breaking the information down in very elementary terms with very real examples to help Black women understand how the science works and feel better about it. And that's the purpose of our movement.
Well, it's interesting, when you talk about that, the whole notion of trust, and for many African-American and Black women, trust is kind of difficult because, we're in workplaces where we feel we're not understood.
Right.
Many people don't even see us, don't even connect with our realities. And so we've grown up, I think, over centuries, learning not to trust.
Right.
And so when you talked about that, this whole notion of trusting and having to be on top of everything for ourselves, having to take care of, many times, everybody, and making ourselves the last priority. I can see why it's very difficult for us to step up and say, look, it's time for me to trust that other people do care about me and have my interest at heart. And you seem like you found that you have the kind of secret weapon to have dealt with that challenge.
Well, we all wear the purple cape, Vanessa. I got my gold crown. It's invisible right now, but it's here. There you go, right? We all have it. I will give you my last piece of chicken and starve. I will buy you a car and walk. I will do whatever for the people I love. And, I call it the Harriet Tubman syndrome. Have you seen that movie where basically in my space, you better do what I say. I will take care of you, but you better do everything I say, right? I'm a control freak, helicopter mom, all the things. But I am always going to put myself last, even at the expense of my own life. And we see that so much in the breast cancer space. But we have to get over that, and we have to find a way to take care of ourselves, because guess what? We can't take care of everybody else if we're not here or if we're sick. And so we're really trying to force these conversations. And, a lot of it is just the way Black families work. We don't talk about health at the kitchen table until Uncle Pookie gets his leg amputated or Grandma Edith is in hospice, right? We don't talk about it. So we're trying to force these conversations into the Black families, and really using young women and reaching out to young. We have an HBCU internship program, and a lot of our outreach on When We Trial is to young women. We have a radio campaign on Radio 1 to young women so that they can have these conversations and get people to get over these barriers and trust that we're getting this message and it's important and they have to believe in it. But guess what? The message has to come from us. And I mean, think about what Black women do. We get people elected. We got Obama elected. We got Biden elected, whatever. We do that. But guess what? We did it on our own with each other, Black women.
Well, let me ask you, so you have a Black woman. Many of us are taking care of our families, or, I mean, clearly we work in marriages is a dual partnership, both the man and the woman, or the woman and woman are working.
Right.
And we're taking care of generations oftentimes. So that job becomes critical. So how do you advise when you're coaching, how do you advise a Black woman in the workplace to, number one, share that she has breast cancer, and then to share or ask for the kind of support she needs? How do you prepare her for that conversation?
The line I use is no one fights alone. That we want to do this work. We want to take care of ourselves. We want to be the shero of the household. We want to take care of everybody. But when you have breast cancer, you cannot do it alone. You cannot do it alone. And you have to rely on people. And it's not, you don't have to be embarrassed by being sick. You don't have to be, make yourself seem vulnerable to others. It's almost like this thing that we're worried that we can't take care of ourselves and we can't take care of our people. You have to give in to that. And you have to give in and ask for help, and it's okay. We have a lot of conversations with breasties about, just explaining it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to get the help. And you know what? We have to help each other. When I was sick, I was never alone for a year. All of my friends just showed up. My friends from all parts of my life, from childhood, from college, from working, from all different cities. And most of them didn't even know each other. But they knew that I wouldn't ask for help because I'm a helicopter mom, crazy person, right?
Right.
So they just showed up. So every Sunday, somebody would come and somebody would leave for a year. They did major projects in my house. They helped me get divorced. They helped me sell my house. They helped me move to a different place. They took me to chemo. They held my head over the top, but they never asked me for help. They just showed up. And that's what we have to do for each other, because we're not gonna say I need help. But so just show up for your friends. When you know somebody's needing something, just show up, bring the chicken, feed the kids, take the kids to ballet, do something for somebody else. And don't even ask about how can I help you? Don't ask what can I do for you? Just do it. We all know what needs to be done, and we have to show up for each other. So I actually started a club with them called SMAD, Sisters Making a Difference. So when I got well, and we have a prayer call every Sunday night. And since then, 10 years have gone by, and one of them had a kidney transplant. One of them's husband died. So we all support each other, and we have this network. And, we all live in these matriarchs of women.
Yes.
Take advantage of the matriarchs that you live within, but help each other out without asking for help, without having to make them ask for help.
Well, let me ask you, Ricki. So you're in the workplace, and I'm a supervisor. Say I'm a white male supervisor. What are the things that I can do to provide support to that Black woman who's dealing with breast cancer, given that she's not going to ask for it traditionally? How can I step up?
Use cultural humility.
Cultural humility.
Not cultural relevance, not, all these cultural words, cultural humility. And
talk more about that. What is that?
That means, look at how you're going to make somebody feel. How are you going to make somebody feel when you say this? How are you going to how would you feel if someone said that to you? Again, it's the golden rule. It's looking at how you're going to make somebody feel and how they're going to walk away from that conversation. And how would you feel if you walked away from that conversation?
So it's not about trying to make this complicated.
Right.
You're saying step back and how would you want to feel? How would you
want to feel?
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
How would you want to feel?
So let me ask you, Ricki, because this is obviously a very complex situation, and it's personal and it's scary, right? And it gets at the thing that probably scares a lot of Black women a lot, losing control or not being in control of situations. Do you feel that it's changing? Do you feel with the Black women that are under 35 that are having these increased episodes or incidents of breast cancer, do you feel that there's more willingness to be there for each other, to ask for the help, to go and get that mammogram? Improving?
I don't know. The jury's still out. I know that our movement has sent 1,120 Black women into clinical trial portals over the last 3 months, which is pretty huge. So, but we have to, whatever we did in the past isn't working, hasn't worked, won't work. Unless we change how we're thinking about everything, whether it's the workplace, whether it's cancer, whatever, we have to change and do it differently. One of my favorite quotes is Albert Einstein: "A problem cannot be solved within which the framework it was created." And so when somebody comes to me and says, well, this is how I've always done it, well, I don't really care. That's like the worst thing you can tell me, because has it worked for you? No. So how are you going to do it differently? And, I worked in corporate America for 30 years, many years at some major corporations. And I was very often the only Black, the only woman in the room, surrounded by white males. And I just never gave them a pass. I never gave them a pass, and I never let them get away with stuff. And it's hard to put yourself out there, but I really got to the point where, I can't let you get away with what you just said because of these reasons. And now I'm sort of doing that in situations with pharma, where I do believe in our breast cancer space, the pharmaceutical companies are stepping up to the plate. They're seeing where they've gone wrong with Black women. They're seeing us dying, and they're saying, and I forced the conversation about Black breast cancer. It's a different disease that warrants different attention. And I'm getting really a great response to that, but I have to beat the drum every day. I don't give anyone a pass. One of the words I hate is we have to deal with the underserved population. I'm sure you've heard that word. And that goes to the workplace too. What does that mean? That means you have a dinner party, you invite 10 people, and it's a beautiful table setting with the champagne glasses and the silverware, whatever, but you only have enough chicken for 4 people. But guess what? We don't even know there's a dinner party.
We haven't been invited.
We haven't been invited to the party. We don't even know there's a champagne glass, even with or without the chicken. So we changed that word to unsupported. It's not underserved, it's unsupported. We don't have anything. And I think that's what, even in the workplace, are you unsupported? Or do you feel unsupported? And how can you get the support that you need? But you have to stand up and ask for it yourself. And in breast cancer, you have to stand up and ask the doctor for that clinical trial. You have to stand up and ask for the care you deserve. You have to ask for the golden rule. And the same thing in the workplace. Don't be shy. Do what you got to do and ask for it.
Well, Ricki, one of the things that strikes me as I listen to you is your attitude. You talked about the fact that they gave you 2 years to live with your initial diagnosis. You said, I got to get my daughter through college. There's things I got to do. So no, that's not going to happen to me.
Right.
How important is the mental mindset? How, because I hear it in you, and I see it in all of the examples you share. I see examples of that. So how important is that in this battle?
My rule is no is never the answer. It's always how.
No is never the answer.
It's always how. I don't take no for an answer, and I don't say no. I figure you got to figure it out. There's always a way to get what you want. You just have to figure it out. And my father used to say, stand over my crib, I guess, and say, if you can't figure it out, you're not thinking hard enough, Ricki. Think harder. There's got to be a way to fix it. There's got to be a way to do it. But I don't say no, and I don't take no. And you have to figure out how to get what you want and how to get what you have to have done. And
well, Ricki, I just want to thank you for just being in this space and sharing this information, this important information with us today. And, when we think about our lives and how we choose to live, our legacy is an important consideration, right? And I'm just thinking of those 1,100 plus women you've gotten in clinical trials, the people that you're going to touch just with what you're sharing today. And we want to include a link to your website. And I just want you to know that that's going to be on the show, because I want folks to go to your Touch website, and anyone who has a friend or they're personally dealing with it, going through themselves to reach out and touch your website to learn more. So in closing,
Can I say one more thing? Can I say
yeah,
one
I'm just
more
going to ask you, is there one more thing you want to share
Okay,
with us?
Great. So the one thing I tell my daughters, and I told pretty much everyone I work with in corporate America, and I got this from Carla Harris. Do you know Carla from
Yeah,
Morgan Stanley?
I do.
I'm from a Carla Harris Power Pearl. You know, when you're in the room, when you are being evaluated, whether somebody's making a decision about your career, about a promotion, about your next job, about whether you're going to be hired or not, you're not going to be in the room. You're not going to be in the room, right? So what are the 3 things you want people to know about you when you are not in the room? And what are the 3 things, like what's your brand? What do you want people to say about you when you're not in the room?
Okay.
And you need to live those things every day to you know, so that people think about you in those words when you're not there.
So what are the 3 things you want people to know about you? And for a woman that's dealing with breast cancer, you're asking her to think about it and think about those 3 things as well. Am I correct?
Yeah, when the doctor's not there. Yep. I know my craft. I know my stuff. I'm really good at what I do, right? The first thing I want them to say, she knows her stuff. She does excellent work. The third thing is that I'm very passionate about what I do, that I just put my whole self into it. I'm very passionate about it. And my last thing is you know, well, I have 2 hashtags that sort of fit into this. My last one, I get shit done. Hashtag GSD. My other hashtag is hashtag DIS, do iconic shit. I'm always going to solve the problem in a creative, different way. I'm always going to look at a different way of doing it.
Well, Ricki, I just thank you for that tip. What are the 3 things that we want people, a woman wants the organization or someone to know about her? And 1, she's smart, she does her work, and she's an important part of the organization. So make the investment in her as she's going through this breast cancer experience. I want to thank you, Ricki, so much for being a part of our show today. And again, we're going to drive folks to your website because they are going to be touched, encouraged, and motivated as a result of that. So on behalf of our Working It Out podcast crew, I just wish every one of you a safe, productive, and what we call Be Happy Week. I'm Dr. Vanessa Weaver, and I'm signing off. Goodbye.
Working It Out is brought to you by Alignment Strategies, a management consultancy with more than 3 decades of experience in diversity, equity and inclusion, and organizational development. To learn more, visit alignmentstrategies.com.
Got problems on the job, we're working it out. Workplace got you stressing, we're working it out. Yeah, we're working it out, working it out, working it out.